Typecast Heroes, where we believe typology can save the world. I'm Jessie Miller.
And I'm Amanda Fogelson.
And today we are talking about the INFJs. Just as a reminder, this series serves as a teaser for our 16-episode podcast series that will be airing sometime this year. And if you want a little bit more information on our project, please go watch Welcome to Typecast Heroes, our very first video. And have mercy. Have mercy, because it is rough.
It is a rough one.
We've gotten much better, as you can tell. Just a quick warning, as we like to say on every video, anyone can be anything. So while we go throughout the examples and the functions of the INFJ, you may relate to a few of them, but that does not mean that you're an INFJ. Be sure to check in with yourself, figure out what your default setting is and who you are at your core, and really figure out if you are an introverted user or an extroverted user, which functions you use. You really have to get to know yourself before you can decide on which functions you're using. And specifically in regards to the INFJ, a lot of people, a lot of people believe that they're an INFJ, when really they're probably some other type, just because of how uncommon the INFJ is. So specifically in this video, if you have any questions or want to follow up with us, we are happy to discuss, but just remember who you are and what your default setting is, please. So thank you for all of that. So let's introduce the INFJs, because they're the magical unicorns, right? Super special unicorns. No. So we're gonna, if you haven't watched any of our other videos, the first thing is INFJs are not magic. If you're an INFJ who feels like you're magic, more power to you. But we don't have that belief here at Typecast Heroes. So so there is that. So we are going to jump into the cognitive functions about the INFJs. If you haven't seen any of our other videos, we have a whole series on the cognitive functions. So each one of these things you can learn more about in depth. The videos are about 20 to 30 minutes long, and they go into all of the details that you could possibly want to know. We also have a video on what are cognitive functions and what is a cognitive stack. So we're going to give you a brief overview. If you are new to our channel, though, please go watch all of the resources that we have at your disposal. All right, so I'm going to do my best to be as objective as possible, because again, some of the criticism, we've gotten a lot of support on our channel, but some of the criticism is I don't spend a lot of time on the NI dominance, and that is because I am one, and it's a little challenging to talk about yourself. So I'm going to try very hard to not use self-related things when I'm discussing all of this. I'm going to try to be as objective as possible, but really, like, what is objectivity, though?
I mean, really.
Okay, so cognitive functions. So go watch that video on what are the cognitive functions, because it goes into explanation of what these things are, but they are, what, Amanda? What do I say all the time? What are cognitive functions?
They're how you take in information and perceive the world around you.
And so again, a lot of people argue about how are these things defined? How are these things used in your brain? What the definitions of all the things are, but the reason that we teach it like this is because it gives you a language to describe what's going on in your head and in the heads of the people that you love. So when you are conversing with them and there's a conflict, or when you are interacting with the world and you're trying to put a word to something that's happening in your mind, that is what Carl Jung psychology gives us, and that is why we teach it like this. So we have a whole explanation on the phrasing that we use. Again, it's in the what is your cognitive stack. But the very first function that we are going to discuss today with the INFJ is the Introverted Intuition hero. So this is the function that you lead with. It is the function that you predominantly interact with when you enter an environment. So for the INFJ, that is Introverted Intuition. So Introverted Intuition definitely had the most vague definition according to Carl Jung, because it can look like a lot of different things. But the best way to explain it, in my opinion, is it is advanced pattern making with abstract theoretical concepts. So that means that when you are interacting with the world, the first thing you do is you check it against this internal system that you've created throughout your life. Introverted intuition comes with a lot of traits. So one of the things that we talked about in the INTJ video is that if you do not have a problem, if you do not have a philosophical concept or something that your mind is working on, if your introverted intuition is not currently cycling through something, what introverted intuition has a tendency to do is turn on you. And it will start to kind of attack your mind a little bit, because it wants to have these complex problems to solve. So that's a word of warning first. So if you are an INFJ and you are not doing, if you're not feeding your introverted intuition with these kinds of complex problems or abstract problems or things that other people may not seem as practical, but they are like important to you, then your introverted intuition can turn on you, and that can make you feel really anxious. And anxiety is a problem. Anxiety and depression are both problems that INFJs have. So, but we do not have, I will say this too, we don't have a monopoly on it. So just because you may have anxiety or depression doesn't mean you use introverted intuition. The way to heal or appease that anxiety a little bit is you give your introverted intuition a problem to work on so it stops attacking you.
It's almost like it creates, if you've ever, and again, this is not just for NI users, but if you are the type who kind of maybe creates chaos when your life is calm, like if there's nothing that you're focused on, if there's nothing that you're trying to solve or a goal, or a goal, if you're just someone who kind of like can go through life and it's all completely hunky-dory and like, I don't know why that word just came to me, but if there's just nothing that your mind is working on a lot of times, then it will kind of create a problem and that could be something that might not actually exist, but you're still creating it because your mind is needing it. And
I'll give you a for instance.
Yeah.
There have been times and I just said I wasn't going to try. I was trying not to make this super personal, but a for instance is if you are not thinking about these things, if you are not doing this kind of deep thinking, you will start to do you'll look at your relationships and it'll be like, well, what does that action mean? And you'll overanalyze everything. Now, a lot of people can overanalyze interactions, but this is like severely negative thing that you are doing because you aren't focused on something more productive. And introverted intuition, just like all of the functions require certain things to maintain health, introverted intuition requires this sort of abstract thinking. Because if not, you are going to start looking at, well, what does all of this mean in the world? And I'm going to get real, real anxious. So you have to focus something productive. Having said that, you do not have to have a huge vision for saving the world as an INFJ, because a lot of people who I interact with who are INFJs actually don't believe they are one, because there's that stereotype of we're Jesus.
Right.
We're Gandhi, we're Mother Teresa.
You're that really special unicorn. You're someone who's going to literally save the world.
And that's not accurate. INFJs use introverted intuition, which is just a way to see the world and interact with the world in a thought process. But it isn't future telling, and it doesn't have to be this huge world-saving vision. That's fantastic if you have one and if you are currently working on one. But if your vision is just for your family or for the future of your family and you are trying to create this beautiful vision for them, that is still valid. And you can still be an INFJ and have that vision, or your vision for your classroom, or if you're a teacher, or for your patients if you're a doctor or a counselor, or
for your own life, for your own personal life.
Sometimes INFJs get the reputation that they are super insightful or that they can read minds or tell the future. But again, what's really happening is they are advanced pattern making. So they're observing things over and over again, and then they're able to make predictions. As we've mentioned in other videos, humans have a tendency to only remember when they're right. So if you make 10 predictions and you were right 5 out of the 10 times, you all of a sudden think that you can tell the future, and you really can't. So if you are an introverted intuitive dominant, if you are an INFJ, be cognizant of that as you are interacting with the world. After they have introverted intuition, they have their second function, which it's either called the auxiliary, the parent, or the mother, father, depending on your gender. So this is a judging function. So this is how INFJs theoretically make decisions. And Extraverted Feeling, again, go watch that video if you haven't, is primarily concerned with understanding, validating, and relating to the beliefs and the morals and values of all of the people around you. One of the big things about INFJs is they love meaningful conversation, because that way they can get their extroverted feeling and their introverted intuition working together. So small talk, probably not their jam, but if you want to have a conversation about the future of a world religion or where politics are heading, they can have a really great conversation with you. And it's a very good way to feed that introverted intuition and also feed their extroverted feeling functions. However, extroverted feeling, when they are young, it also has this tendency to understand social norms and then get really angry when the people around you are not. So this causes a lot of conflict with extroverted feeling, and if you have an introverted feeler in your life, because extroverted feeling is all about maintaining harmony, maintaining these social values, like this, the status quo, if you will, to an extent, especially in a young person. So a teenager, somebody in their early 20s, may want to just go with the flow because that way they get to maintain this external harmony. And then you throw in the mix an introverted feeler, like an ISFP or an ENFP or something like that, and they kind of are going to butt heads because introverted feeling is all about individuality and what matters to you. And
regardless of what everyone else is feeling about that situation.
So you've got INFJ with extroverted feeling who wants to maintain all of the social order, and then they get this reputation of being judgy because they're fussing at the people who aren't just going with the flow. But again, that's the lens through which they look at the world, and sometimes they get this unfair thing of, well, you're just selfish because you just want to maintain, you just want what you want. No, INFJs look and they try to assess what's good for everyone, and they don't check it against their own personal morals or values. A lot of times they don't even know what that looks like until they're much older. So it's not like they're trying to make you adhere to their view. It's like they want you to adhere to the main view. I'm not saying that this is a good choice either, but I'm trying to explain how they see the world and how they make decisions. Because I think personally that view of an INFJ who's running around telling everybody what to do because they think they know best, I think that might be a little unfair. Extroverted feeling wants harmony for the good of the whole, not the good of the person. And oftentimes, INFJs, when they look at the world, they do not see themselves in it because introverted intuition comes with an awful lot of detachment. Introverted intuition is a lens through which you see the world that you are not a part of. So like when they're looking at the world, they're looking at it through all of these concepts, like huge historical sweeping narratives or religious perspectives, and they're not a part of it. So it can be really detached and really isolating and make you feel really lonely. So when they're trying to maintain social harmony, it's not because they think they know everything. It's because that's what they see as the best for everyone. So it is in your, they are doing it with your interest in mind, not their own agenda, which is really maddening, I think, when I see that stereotype and that kind of thing depicted on the internet when it comes to an INFJ. Something else that this causes with this extroverted feeling is that INFJs are really hard on themselves. So if they're being hard on you, I bet you they are probably 12,000 times harder on themselves because they really want to maintain social harmony. Again, that's like one of their big things because that second function is, I call it a compulsion. So it's like constantly trying to make you be responsible, make you do these things. And if it's all about making harmony, if you do anything that disrupts it, you cut somebody off in traffic or you snap at somebody, you end up feeling like you caused a lot of problems. And again, if your introverted intuition is not working on something productive, it starts looking at you like, oh man, that person gave you a bad look today. You messed up the harmony. What's wrong with you? And so it's a lot of internal negative feelings. So yes, INFJs do have really high standards, but they are often far more harsh on themselves than they are harsh on you. So if you have an INFJ in your life and you perceive them as particularly harsh, just imagine all of the internal stuff going on with them. So now we're going to move on to the third function. So INFJs are a perceiving bridge, which means that they can use extroverted feeling almost equally with their thinking function, which is introverted thinking. And so these two things kind of fight. So we call the introverted thinking child the bratty one. Yes, it is.
Well, to be fair, it's every child function. So the third function for everyone is the bratty one, not just INFJs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it can be, it's also called the tertiary function or the girl or boy function. And then there are words in Latin, which I'm not going to try to say, but that's okay. So this means that they can be kind of bratty with their own logic. So INFJs can get into battles with people about something. And for for me personally, when I'm in an argument with someone,
a healthy debate,
I get really frustrated and concerned with how they are structuring their argument, and if it is not following a clean line,
according to
I get real mad. No, it's according to all logical logic, like rules of logic, like logical reasoning. The premise, you have the condition and the premise, and you have to, whatever. You can't just go in out of order. I hate that. Okay, so that right there is introverted.
This right here is a bratty TI child.
Okay, cool. So, some other way that introverted thinking child function can come out into the world is it likes to play with ideas, just like an INTP or ISTP, which is why I love conversing with people who have TI as their first or second function, because we can play with ideas. So we probably do. You heard it here. INFJs probably are not the most logical of all of the types, clearly, but they can have this, because they have that as their push and pull in their second and third function, but they can be very logical, very rational, and they love to work through ideas. Fortunately, though, this can also cause them a lot of anxiety when things don't make sense. So introverted intuition is constantly wanting to make sense of everything, right? It wants to give everything meaning and fit it into their sort of internal synergized system. If it doesn't fit and it can't make sense, then the INFJ is probably going to reject it. Introverted thinking child wants to also make sense of everything. And so when you have these two things fighting, if something doesn't make sense, if something's brand new to an INFJ, or if some situation in the world is going on that they can't wrap their minds around, it causes a ton of anxiety for them.
One thing to note is if you are thinking that you may be an INFJ, and so like we said in the beginning, that a lot of people think that they are INFJs just because their test on the website showed them or whatever. However, there are true INFJs out there that use TI more than they use FE. And I would say that's probably, 50-50 INFJs. So if you are thinking, oh, there's no way I can be an INFJ because I'm not super empathetic, or I, can't always tell what everyone around me is feeling, or whatever, you may be an INFJ who's using your TI a little bit more than your FE. And that's okay. That's completely okay. And as a woman, that's going to feel even weirder, and we discussed that in our TI video, so go watch that. But also, I just wanted to kind of give you permission to accept that you're an INFJ, even if you aren't this like touchy-feely type of person. That is not necessary to be an INFJ.
Most of us, it takes time to develop those things, those extroverted functions, and when we go through type development, we will go into that super in depth, but we're not quite there yet. This is just like a brief overview of the INFJ. Well, it's supposed to be brief. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to the inferior function, extroverted sensing. So introverted intuition, again, is this, it kind of lives in your own world, abstract world, and reality doesn't feel real. I've given this example over and over again, but I'll give it one more time. Sometimes I will sit and I will be really immersed in my books or in writing out a theory that I've been working on, and hours and hours and hours and hours will pass, and then all of a sudden, it'll be like, oh my God, this is a table. Like, this is a real table in front of me. Time has just passed. Like, what is time? I've said that 4 times today to people because I was not being very timely in my responses, and I just kept saying time is a construct. Like, it's not even real. Because it doesn't feel real to us. I often feel like a floating ball of theories that just so happens to be attached to a corporeal being, and I don't really understand how that happens. So we have a strong detachment from reality if extroverted sensing is not developed. Sometimes that means that we forget our own body's needs. I'm a runner, and I've injured myself so many times running because I'm not super attached to pain. I had a splinter in my foot for 2 weeks and didn't even realize it was there because, again, not really attached to my body. It's not necessarily a high pain tolerance. It's more just like we just don't think about it.
Don't even notice it.
Also, sometimes this means that INFJs can stretch the truth. So this is something else I wanted to clarify. It's not like they're lying on purpose. I have done this so many times where I've been like, oh yeah, I did that last week. And no, I did it 6 months ago. But it's not like I'm consciously trying to trick you or anything like that. It's because we just really don't live in reality. And so when we are faced with realistic things, our mind kind of just passes it off as, oh, that's no big deal.
It's like something's either in the past, happening right now, or in the future. And there's no like way to divide it up to be like, oh, this happened like a week ago versus like 6 years ago.
No, the past is back there.
Yeah, it's over and done with. Move on.
Yes, and I have done that so many times. I mean, my son is almost 8. I just had to count. But so many times I will tell people he's 9 or he's 5, and I'm just like, no, it's not because we're not attached. It's not because I don't care or because I don't have it memorized. It's just because when somebody asks me, the real moment when they're asking me feels not realistic. Mm-hmm. And so I just throw out a piece of information because my head is doing something else. Other ways that extroverted sensing inferior can present. So remember, the 4th function is the function that people feel self-conscious about, they feel nervous about, they feel worried about. So extroverted sensing as an inferior can present as, if an INFJ will feel really bad if you call them impractical. Probably don't do that. Unless you do it in a very kind, constructive criticism way, probably don't tell them they're being impractical, because that's something that they feel really self-conscious about, and then they get defensive about it. They can also be self-conscious of how they present in reality, and then you combine that with extroverted feeling. And so if you tell them, man, you did horrible in that meeting, like you were just the freaking worst, that is a great way to ruin their whole day. So probably
that's something that would no, it's not a day. That's something that would stick with them for like
ever,
literally ever. They would be able to recall this at any, like they may not have the best memories in the world, but they will recall that negativity. They absolutely will, because more than anyone else, they already knew that they sucked in that meeting. They were already hard on themselves about it, and then you just made it so much worse.
It's not fun. I still remember awkward things I did in 1st grade. And I don't remember anything else.
Just the bad moments.
Also, something else is sounds will bug them. This happens to me too. Somebody will be making a sound for a long time, and then all of a sudden, after hours of the sound, I will suddenly get really frustrated with the sound. And the last thing that extroverted sensing has that we are going to talk about today, that the effect that it has on an INFJ, is they really want to bring their big introverted intuition visions into reality. So if that's the vision that they have, again, for their classroom, for their family, for themselves, for the world, for a certain organization, they really want to bring it forward into the world. And if they can't, or if they're constantly hitting roadblocks, they end up feeling really bad about it. Mm-hmm. So we already kind of covered the stereotypes, but just real quick recap. INFJ is not magic.
Not magic. Y'all are special. You are, but you're not magic.
They tend to be know-it-alls. That's another stereotype I see. But again, remember, you have to look at their motivation. If you are truly interested in understanding how people see the world, you have to know that they're not doing this to be harsh or to be the boss or to be in control. They're doing this to maintain harmony for the good of everyone.
So it's not so much that they aren't doing the things that you think they're doing. It's just their intention behind it and why they're doing it, which, if you're going to judge somebody, you really do need to know the intention behind their actions, because if they're completely unaware to what they're doing, can you judge them for that? Can you not? I guess it's a personal thing, but we would say no. If their intention is to be kind and good, and this is just how they are taking in their information, then that's just how they're wired. Which is why this is so huge to understand, and why this language means so much.
It does, because again, a lot of INFJs probably feel like they're terrible already. So this is a way that they can feel a little more understood. So the role of society when it comes to this, they feel lonely, they feel misunderstood. Yes, a lot of INFJs have victim complexes. Yes, a lot of INFJs have a bad relationship with their past. Go ahead and let them.
Don't try to fix it.
And don't try to fix it by giving them, Amanda and I were literally just talking about this the other day. Do not try to fix it by giving them an experience from the past of when it was okay before. Yeah. That is the worst way to do it. You have to reframe it in a way that they will understand it. Appeal to the logic in them. Do not try to, I hate that. And it is not just me. It is a shadow function, which we will discuss later. But it's just appeal to the logic in them if you are trying to help an INFJ. And also, please have patience with the INFJs, because if they are a true INFJ, as they grow, they will soften up. They will have a tendency to find a vision. They will calm down. I understand, because I was one, that it can be very hard for people to interact with INFJs when they're young. Have patience. They will grow up. They will have these great things to offer the world, but you've got to wait sometimes. And so INFJs, if you're out there, if you are a true INFJ, your role in society is to bring your introverted intuition vision out into the world, whatever it looks like. You have to do that or you will never be happy. You're never going to be happy with just the run-of-the-mill existence unless you are fulfilling your introverted intuition vision. And I'm telling you this because I work with INs all day, INTJs and INFJs all day who feel really lost. It's like they wake up in their 40s or 50s and they realize they need to do something. They've got to fulfill this purpose somehow because it worked all their life. I had that moment too where I woke up and I was like, oh my God, what have I, where did time go? Existence isn't even real anymore. You have to find that and you have to fill it. And that again could look like a million different things. It could look like going back for the degree you never finished, or it could look like this vision you have for your family, or it could look like just being the best teacher, the best you, the best mom that you can be, and all these different nuances of how you're going to meet it. And those are all valid. But if you are not living true to your vision, you are going to be very unhappy. And we always say tends to, but this is pretty much a given.
Just a general statement about NI users in general, but INFJs in particular. You really just need to find that thing. And again, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but I will say that it more than likely will be associated with some type of risk, which is not your favorite thing in the world. So lean into it though. Find yourself someone who's going to support you and help push you. Don't find everyone, don't surround yourself around people who are just going to let you be. Because sometimes INFJs have a tendency to just kind of sit on their ideas and not necessarily act. Like you guys have amazing ideas, but again, risk is not necessarily your favorite, and most every big idea is going to be associated with some sort of risk. And even if that risk is just putting yourself out there, putting your feelings out there, putting your thoughts out there, and maybe people don't agree with you, that's risky. That's really risky, especially to an INFJ. Super risky. So just do it. Dive in and do the big things that you want to do. And again, if you don't have big world life-changing things that you want to do and you just want to buy a beautiful house for your family, or go and you maybe you want to leave your job and you want to work somewhere else or whatever, don't just be stuck in that security. Go ahead and take that risk on yourself because you deserve it.
Because being human is hard.
And this should hopefully make it just a little bit easier.
Thank you for watching our channel and our video today. So the best thing that you can do is go ahead and subscribe to our channel, which I know Amanda usually runs through this, but go for it.
She's an INFJ, so
I just cut over.
She's you. Oh. But yes, we need all of the support that we can get, and you guys have been amazing. So like, subscribe, and share. Sharing is so huge and it's so helpful. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, and Discord, and obviously YouTube. So if you have, again, not watched our very first video about this project and what Typecast Heroes is all about, please go watch Welcome to Typecast Heroes. And if you've already interviewed, so appreciate it. Thank you so much. Go ahead and pass all of our information along to all of your friends and family. And if you haven't interviewed, then come on over.
That's it.
That's it. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh.
Let's gather around the type fire and sing our type fire song. Our MBTI TYPOLOGY song. And if you feel uncomfortable, then know there's nothing wrong.